Hello and welcome everybody. In today's video, it's story time. I'm going to tell a little story about how this little 50 milliliter glass Crown Royal bottle has been in my life for the last 23 years and sort of what significance it has played along the way. I didn't even realize that this was in my life that long until I started thinking about it and realized, man, I've had this since grade 8. I was 13 years old when I got this little bottle. We'll get into that story in a minute. First, I want to set a bit of an intention for the year. I want to fill this bottle, 50 milliliters, full of gold dust that I find jet boat gold mining this year. I don't know how ambitious of a goal that is, so we're going to do some math and we're going to figure out just how much this would be worth if it was actually full of flour gold. First of all, we all know that pure gold, 24 karat gold, has a density of 19.3 grams per milliliter or grams per cubic centimeter. This is roughly 91% pure, 90 to 91% pure gold. It's 22 karat gold when I had it melted down and assayed. So what is the density of 22 karat gold? I went online and I could find a list for 18 karat gold. So 24 karat gold is 19.32. 18 karat gold is 15.58. But what is 22 karat gold? And couldn't really find that anywhere. So it obviously depends on what it's alloyed with. Silver has a density of about 10.5. Copper has a density of about 9 or like 8.96 copper. And what I did is I just did the math here and I said, if I had 100 grams of 22 karat gold, 90% pure, we'll call it, well, how much gold would there be? So 90 grams of that would be 19.3 grams per gram, which would give me a total number of 1,737 grams. The remaining 10% would have a density of 10.5 if it was silver, which would give me 105 grams, or 8.9 if it was copper, which would give me an additional 89 grams. So you combine that together and it would turn out that the total weight of this would be about 1,842 to 1,826 grams, depending on if it was copper or silver. So your density would be 18.42 to 18.26 instead of 19.32. We're going to go with 18.3 for this, sort of, benefit of the doubt that it's more copper than silver. So if this 50 milliliters was completely full of 22 karat gold at 18.26 grams per milliliter, we would have 915 grams of gold in this bottle, be about $79,000 Canadian at today's price of 87.24 per gram Canadian dollars. That's a very ambitious goal, but that would be if it was a solid chunk of gold melted down. And it turns out this flour gold has a lot of airspace, a lot of gaps between all that powder. So how do I actually figure this out? I tried Googling. There wasn't anything that really seemed too convincing. So the experiment I did, I took 2 identical vials. One vial is full of exactly 10 grams of gold. The other vial I filled up with what looks like the exact same amount of water to the drop. So the same volume of water. And I weighed it on a scale. I weighed the difference. And it turns out that the weight of this water is 1.82 grams or 1.82 milliliters of water gives you the same volume as 10 grams of gold. Do the math here so that 1 milliliter is to 10 grams of gold, like 1.82 milliliters is to 5.495 grams of gold. So essentially, 5.495 grams per milliliter is what this gold dust works out to. Then we can do our math. 5.495 grams times 50 milliliters gives us a total of 274.75 grams of gold if this was filled to the brim with Alberta gold dust at 22 carats. Cool. All right. Just for your own interest's sake, it works out to roughly 30% of the volume if you were to melt it all down. So basically, yeah, if you had 100 grams of gold and it was this big and you melted it into a solid chunk, you would have 30% of the volume remaining, right? So if this was right to the brim and then you melted it into a little solid chunk, it would come down to the 30% mark. That's sort of how much is air. 70% roughly is just airspace between all these little flakes of gold. Now, that would work out to, at again, today's price in Canadian dollars is $87.24 per gram, would give us 23,969, nice, and 19 cents dollars Canadian worth of gold if I filled this thing to the brim, which is a lot, but I have a long time to collect it. Except I'm sort of thinking about my summer right now, and first of all, ice has got to melt, and then between now and the floods, the water's low. I can get out and check some low water areas, but some of the higher concentration areas you might see up on a gravel bar might be covered with muck from the ice, and it needs a flood to come and clear that all out. So I don't know how well I can expect to do until after the floods. I'm going to try to get out here and find out. It's all part of the learning experience. Then, of course, I've got a family vacation booked. I've got another little trip booked. The summer just disappears very quickly, and I might be lucky to get 10 weeks before freeze up when I can actually focus on gold mining. And that is assuming that I don't have any sort of a job. If I just quit my, all income sources, and I'm just like, I'm focusing on gold mining. So if I had 10 weeks, now on average, you're going to have different levels of being out working and coming home to rest. If I just worked 10 weeks straight, I would only need to get 3.9 grams a day, which is actually kind of challenging sometimes, but once you're on a spot, you should be able to dig that fairly well. If I were to only work like a 4-day week and then come home for 3 days to sort of recharge, let my back rest, and edit videos throughout the summer. I'm going to have to, make time to edit videos and keep YouTube going, because the income I can potentially make from YouTube is going to help assist me being able to afford to go mining more, as opposed to having to essentially go get a full-time 9-to-5 job and just not have any time available to go gold mining. So I'm going to try to set up my life this year to live as cheaply as possible and do everything I can to take this opportunity between now and the end of the summer to try to mine full time. I have a little bit of a runway of cash saved up. If I'm really careful with it, I can stretch this out, and I'm going to do my best to use that to just mine as much as I possibly can. Hopefully YouTube can help extend that and keep me doing this so that I don't have to, go back to the factory and just give up on mining before the end of the year. So we'll see how all that works out. But a realistic thing would be, what if I worked for 4 days, came home for 3? In that case, I would need 6.9 grams per day. Nice. Anyways, that's kind of the plan. And now I just want to tell you how I got this thing, because I have had it for 23 years. I said I'm 36 today. And I got this when I was 13. I didn't drink it when I was 13. It was part of a bottle drive. So in my grade 8 class, we had this opportunity to go on a West Coast sailing trip. There was 3 different trip options available. I really wanted to do the sailing one, and they basically had 3 sailboats, and they put, it was 10 or 15 kids on each boat, and we just sailed around for a few days on the inside of Vancouver Island there. Talk about formative experiences. That I've never sailed since, but to this day, it was probably one of the more memorable experiences I had growing up. You had the little motor, you'd motor around a little bit, and then one day there was a good wind, we're out in the open water, we raise the sails, the wind catches the sail, the boat heels over, you see the water going by, and from that moment on, I knew, at some point, I want a sailboat. I want to go sailing. That was such a phenomenal experience. I can't put into words. I remember that feeling today from way back when. And in order to afford to go on this trip, they had an option for us to go and do a bottle drive. So I would go around, put my flyers out. Hey, we're collecting bottles this Saturday, and please put your bottles out. And then of course got my parents to drive my little loop with me on Saturday and collect all these bottles. I think I don't know exactly how much I got, but it was over $100 worth of bottles. And one of the houses had a bunch of these little mini liquor bottles. And there's just something about this. It's just, in my eyes, it's just kind of a pretty thing. Now this is a glass bottle, and I've looked for them today. I can't find a glass bottle anymore. They still look the same, but they're made out of plastic. So this is my rare little find here of a glass Crown Royal bottle. Never drank the contents. It came empty. Not every experience has to start with a purchase. This was just an experience. Part of an experience was that I acquired this. And instead of taking it in for my 10 cents, I held on to this one. And I just thought it was kind of cool. And then of course the sailing thing, sailors, rum, yar har har. I was like, man, what a cool little bottle. I could, store potions and elixirs in here, whatever I was into at the time. And that leads me to the next year when I was in grade 9. And we just did a fair bit of math in this video to try to figure out how all this stuff works. And it's fairly basic, grade 9 level math. There's no, graphing calculators or anything like that involved. But I was never very good at math. I would argue I'm still not a math person. It's a difficult language for me to understand. But I had an absolutely terrible math teacher. And what I discovered was that if I were to fill this little bottle, maybe about a third of the way full of iced tea powder, and just put a little drop of water in there to fill it up to the brim, shake it around, I could have like a concentrated iced tea powder with me. It was probably the equivalent of like a cup of iced tea, but it was just in this little mini liquor bottle so I could have it in my pocket. Swig my little thing of iced tea, and then the caffeine and sugar from that iced tea would sort of perk me up for the next 15 or 20 minutes in that math class, and keep me from just completely falling asleep and being super bored with this terrible teacher. So I did have that, and actually, speaking about math, there was a bit of an unofficial competition that started to happen between me and a girl in the opposite class to me, as who would get kicked out more by the end of the year. So this teacher was a truly terrible teacher. Like, there's a lot of really good teachers out there, teachers who are inspiring kids, teachers who are excited to be there. This was not one of them. There's usually one dud per year if you're currently going through school right now, where a certain teacher's just either doesn't jive with you or just hates their life. They're angry that they're, a teacher or something, and they're not the right person for that job. This was one of those people. And so I would get kicked out of class on a very routine basis. I think by the end of the year, I got kicked out 31 times. I didn't start counting until about 10 times in. Somebody said, "Hey, Kyle, this is the 10th time you got kicked out of class." So then I started counting after that. And then the girl opposite to me, she got kicked out 34 times. But I would just wander down the hall to a science teacher just down the road. And she was great. Like, it was really entertaining. I'd show up. I would never cause trouble in that class. I would just sit and, be entertained by doing, whatever little science project they were doing. She'd be like, "Oh, cool. Yes, Kyle got kicked out again. Yeah, no, have your seat." Kind of nuts to think. But one day in this class, I'd just done terribly on a test, and I realized that to decide what's going to happen in high school, I needed to, choose between pure math or applied math. And I figured, well, I should probably try to get into pure math or something. So I was like, okay, got to double down. I'm changing my ways. I am going to learn math today. So instead of sitting back at the back of the class with all my friends where you could, whatever, have a little side conversation and get kicked out, I sat in the very front row, not one back, like very front center. I was like, I'm doing this. I got to class early. I opened my math book to the exact page that we were working on in that chapter. I had my note page open. I had written the date. I was sitting there, and just in my head, I was like, stay quiet. Don't say anything. Just focus. Spend this one class. If you can pull off one class, you can pull off the rest of this week. You can do this. All right. And I kid you not, 30 seconds into the class, I got kicked out. Teacher starts trying to do her lecture and notices that I'm sitting there actually paying attention. I wasn't making any faces or doing anything. I was just like, all right, I'm doing this. Looks at me, says, "Kyle, I'm not in a mood for this today. I don't know what kind of crap you're up to. Get out." I was like, "But I didn't even do it." "Get out! Get out of my classroom right now!" And just lost it. She actually ended up having like a mental breakdown and had to go on leave or something the next year. But yeah, wrong teacher. So at that point, you're 13 years old, you're in grade 8. Things like this affect you maybe more than they would as an adult. And I was just like, oh crap, maybe I just not cut out for math. And what I would say to anyone listening to this, whether you're in junior high school or high school, you're always going to have one teacher or two teachers that you just don't jive with. And I would I would suggest to you that it's not your fault. It's it takes two to tango, right? Like, you're part of the equation here. But if there's a particular subject that you're just really having a hard time with, or that teacher isn't driving with you, go online, and something like Khan Academy, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but like, they basically said, here's the curriculum, K to 12. What do you want to learn? Is it biology? Is it math? Is it whatever? And they've got some of the best teachers out there that have put together lectures and courses that you can like go through in order. Don't skip through everything, but you can probably in a week learn an entire year. Like all of your grade 9 math you could learn in 1 week at the beginning of grade 9. If you just focused on it, went through the courses, actually wrote things down, said, okay, now I've got this. And then you're going to do okay on the tests. And you've got some of the highest quality teachers and the highest quality instruction right there at your fingertips. If you take the time to be like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm not going to fail this class. It's available to you online. And that's sort of a way of skirting around those occasional teachers that come up that just really should not be teachers. Now, there's a lot of really amazing teachers out there. I ended up going to university to train to become a teacher. My classmates, like passionate people, like good people. Teachers are not crap, but you're going to have the occasional teacher that is just crap. And that's one way you can get around that and realize that you can learn whatever you set your mind to learning. So it's a story about tangents. Went off on a little tangent there. But yeah, this bottle was with me in grade 9. Beyond that, I would occasionally take it out on a hike or something with that little iced tea blend because I realized, ooh, that's a nice little perk me up. And then at some point, I just thought to myself when I got into gold mining, and I got into gold mining like pretty much right as I was getting out of high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, and I learned about, wait, there's still gold out there? That's kind of interesting, and sort of really got into it from there. But I remember in that moment, I was like, this would be so cool if it was full of gold. That would be so neat. Maybe one day I'll fill it up. And it's sort of been in my little gold box ever since. So anytime that I open that box and I've got my little vials in there and my little nuggets in there and I'm looking at all of my gold. This has always been sitting in there, whether it's been empty or getting fuller. I've found gold, I've sold gold throughout the years, and it's sort of gone through this bottle occasionally. But this is the year. I want to fill this to the brim, and that is the intention at least. When I go gold mining, I usually have a process-oriented goal, meaning just do this many shovels, this many pans, cover this much river, whatever it is. It's out of my control whether I find a really great pay streak or not, but this would be considered an outcome-oriented goal. So the outcome is to find this much. And I don't know what processes would be required to actually find this much because I've never done it. So I would be assuming too much if I just say the process is to do this many pans or this many shovels. I don't know how many I actually need to do. So the process-oriented goal is to, go in and put in the work. But here I have just a little guiding light, a little outcome-oriented goal. Fill this bottle. Something to think about when I go to bed every night. And to everyone watching, set your own intention for the season and get after it. So, have a good night, everyone. Heavy pans. And until next time, cheers and thanks for watching.